Adam's fingers tapped impatiently on the steering wheel as he sat in rush hour traffic, the radio playing an upbeat song that contrasted with his growing frustration. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, cursing himself for leaving work late again. The line of cars in front of him inched forward, and Adam sighed, readjusting his grip on the steering wheel. His thoughts wandered, recalling the pile of unfinished paperwork on his desk, the upcoming deadline for his rent payments, and the nagging feeling that he was forgetting something important. As his stress mounted, his vision began to blur. Suddenly, the world around him changed. The blaring horns and exhausting fumes of the traffic dissolved into the soothing hum of a quiet chatter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Adam blinked, trying to process the abrupt change in his surroundings. He found himself seated in a cozy corner of a warmly lit coffee shop, the soft jazz music adding to the inviting atmosphere. The stress and chaos of his life seemed to stress away as he took in the calming environment. "Hey there, stranger," said a melodic voice. Adam looked up to see a young woman with a warm smile standing by his table. She was the barista. Her name tag read Evelyn. Her deep brown eyes held a familiarity that Adam couldn't quite place. "Hi," I replied hesitantly, still disoriented. "I'm sorry, but I have no idea how I got here." Evelyn chuckled, her laughter surrounding like a soothing balm to his frayed nerves. "Don't worry about it. It happens to the best of us. Can I get you something to drink?" Sure," he stammered, glancing at the menu. "I'll have a cappuccino, please." Evelyn nodded and disappeared behind the counter, expertly frothing milk and pulling a shot of espresso. She returned moments later with a steaming mug adorned with a delicate heart in the foam. Adam couldn't help but smile, despite his confusion. "Thanks," he said, taking a tentative sip. The rich flavor of the coffee seemed to envelop him in warmth, further easing his anxiety. They chatted idly about his favorite books, the weather, and the local music scene. Adam felt a strange connection to Evelyn, as if he'd known her for years. He was almost able to forget the bizarre circumstances that had brought him here. Without warning, the world around him began to fade, the comforting sounds and smells of the coffee shop dissolving back into the relentless honking of car horns. His heart raced as he found himself back in the car, stopped at a red light. Disoriented and shaken, Adam gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to make sense of what had just happened. His life had just taken an unexpected turn. Little did he know, this was just the beginning. In the days that followed his first blackout, Adam tried to rationalize the strange occurrence. He searched online for stories of similar experiences, but nothing quite matched the vivid clarity of his journey to the coffee shop. It was as if his mind had created a sanctuary from the mounting pressures of his life, complete with the captivating presence of Evelyn, the barista. His daily routine continued, and he attempted to push the memory of the blackout to the back of his mind. However, the stressors that plagued him refused to relent. The deadlines at work grew tighter, and his personal life seemed to spiral further out of control. Every day felt like a race against time, and Adam could feel the tension building within him. One afternoon, as he hurriedly tried to complete a project before his boss's unrealistic deadline, Adam felt his vision blur once more. His heart raced as he realized he was on the verge of another blackout. Just like before, he found himself transported to the cozy coffee shop, seated at his usual corner table. Evelyn greeted him with a warm smile, as if his appearance was not the least bit unusual. "Back again so soon?" she asked, her tone teasing, yet empathetic. Adam sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Yeah, I guess so. Life's just been overwhelming." Evelyn nodded sympathetically as she prepared his usual cappuccino. "Sometimes we all need a break from reality, a safe haven to catch our breath." They chatted as before, discussing life's challenges and sharing words of encouragement. Adam felt his spirits lift, and he found himself wishing he could stay in this sanctuary forever. But, as before, the real world came crashing back, and he found himself sitting at his office desk, the weight of his responsibilities bearing down on him once more. As the blackouts continued to occur, Adam began to notice a pattern. Each time he felt overwhelmed by stress, he would be whisked away to the coffee shop, where he would find solace in Evelyn's comforting presence. Despite the relief these escapes provided, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing control of his life. He confided in his best friend, Mark, who listened carefully as Adam recounted his experiences. Mark was skeptical, but he could see the strain the blackouts were putting on his friend. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Mark suggested. "There might be a medical explanation for these blackouts." Adam considered the idea, but he couldn't shake the notion that the coffee shop and Evelyn were more than a fragment of his imagination. He knew that with each blackout, he was leaving himself vulnerable in the real world, and the consequences could be dire. But as his connection to Evelyn deepened, he couldn't help but wonder if the risk was worth it. In an attempt to regain some sense of normalcy, Adam agreed to meet Mark and a few other friends at a local bar for a night out. The dimly lit establishment buzzed with conversation and laughter, and for a while, Adam felt a sense of relief from the chaos that had consumed his life. As the night wore on, Mark noticed a man across the room glancing at Adam. The man, tall and muscular, seemed to grow increasingly agitated. Mark nudged Adam, gesturing towards the stranger. "Hey, do you know that guy?" Mark asked, his brow furrowed in concern. Adam shook his head, puzzled. "No idea. Never seen him before." The man abruptly stood up and strode toward them, his face contorted in anger. "You've got a lot of nerve showing your face around here," he growled, towering over Adam. Adam stared up at the man, dumbfounded. "I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong person. I don't even know who you are." The man's rage intensified, and he clenched his fists, ready to strike. Mark quickly stepped between them, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, man, there's obviously been a mistake. Just let it go." But the man refused to back down, shoving Mark aside and lunging at Adam. Panic surged through him as he instinctively stood up to confront the man. The tension in the air was palpable, and Adam felt the familiar sensation of his vision blurring. He braced himself for impact, but instead, he found himself back in the coffee shop. The noise and aggression of the bar had vanished, replaced by the comforting sounds of soft jazz and quiet conversation. Evelyn stood at the counter, concern etched on her face as she caught sight of Adam's distress. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine worry. Adam hesitated before recounting the confrontation at the bar. Evelyn listened attentively, her eyes filled with empathy. She prepared his cappuccino, bringing it to him with a reassuring smile. "Sometimes people are like storms," she said softly, "unpredictable and destructive. But every storm passes eventually, and there's always calm after the chaos." As they talked, Adam found solace in Evelyn's words and the peaceful atmosphere of the coffee shop. He felt his tension dissipate, replaced by a sense of safety and tranquility. He allowed himself to forget for a moment the dangerous situation he'd left behind in the real world. When the time came for his inevitable return, Adam felt a pang of regret. He wished he could stay in the coffee shop with Evelyn, where life was simpler and kinder. But as the familiar blur took hold, he found himself back in the bar. The sounds of breaking glass and raised voices signaling the chaos that had ensued in his absence. To his relief, Mark had managed to hold off the enraged man, and security was escorting him out of the bar. Adam could see the concern in his friend's eyes as he approached, and he knew he had to find a way to regain control over his life before the consequences became too severe. But as he glanced around the dimly lit bar, he couldn't help but yearn for the warm embrace of the coffee shop and the soothing presence of the enigmatic barista who had captured his heart. Adam's life had become a precarious balancing act. The blackouts continued, each time providing a temporary escape from his mounting problems, but also leaving him vulnerable to the dangers of the real world. His connection to Evelyn and the coffee shop grew stronger, making it increasingly difficult for him to face the harsh realities of his life. Desperate for answers, Adam sought the help of a therapist, hoping to uncover the root of his blackouts and to find a way to regain control of his life. He recounted his experiences, detailed each visit to the coffee shop, and his growing attachment to Evelyn. The therapist listened carefully, offering occasional nods of understanding and reassurance. "Well, Adam," she began, "it seems that your subconscious mind has created a safe haven for you in times of stress. The coffee shop and Evelyn represent an escape from the pressures you face in your daily life." Adam considered her words, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his experiences than simple stress-induced hallucinations. "But it all feels so real," he insisted. "And Evelyn, she's not just a fragment of my imagination." The therapist smiled gently, her eyes filled with empathy. "It's not uncommon for the mind to create a vivid and convincing alternate reality as a coping mechanism. Evelyn is a symbol of comfort and understanding, someone who can help you navigate the challenges you face." As the sessions continued, the therapist encouraged Adam to confront his stressors head-on, rather than relying on his blackouts as a means of escape. Adam tried to follow her advice, but he found it increasingly difficult to resist the allure of the coffee shop and Evelyn's calming presence. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, Adam decided to take a walk to clear his mind. As he wandered aimlessly through the city streets, he stumbled upon a small, unassuming coffee shop tucked away in a quiet alley. His heart raced as he approached the entrance, the soft glow of the lights within inviting him inside. To his amazement, the coffee shop was a near-perfect replica of the one he visited during his blackouts. The cozy atmosphere, the low hum of conversation, and even the soft jazz playing in the background. The only thing missing was Evelyn. As he took a seat at his usual corner table, a sense of deja vu washed over him. He wondered if this discovery held the key to understanding his blackouts and his connection to Evelyn. As he sipped his coffee, he made a silent vow to uncover the truth, no matter where it led him. Adam found himself drawn to the coffee shop in the real world, visiting it daily after work, hoping to find some clue that would explain his experiences during the blackouts. He began to get to know the staff and the regulars, feeling a sense of belonging within the community that had formed in this small corner of the city. Despite the familiarity, there was still no sign of Evelyn. Adam's longing for her grew stronger with each passing day, as he realized how much he missed her soothing presence and the comfort she provided. Determined to uncover the truth, Adam delved into the history of the coffee shop. He learned that it had been a family-owned business for generations, with each family member leaving their mark on the establishment. As he studied old photographs and newspaper clippings, he discovered a picture of a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Evelyn, dated nearly 50 years prior. His curiosity piqued. Adam sought out the elderly owner of the coffee shop, Mrs. Thompson. He showed her the photograph, asking if she knew the woman. Mrs. Thompson's eyes filled with nostalgia as she gazed at the image. "That's my sister, Evelyn," she said, her voice soft with reminiscence. "She passed away many years ago, but she was always the heart and soul of this place. She had a gift for making people feel welcome and at ease. I like to think her spirit lives on within these walls." Adam's heart raced as he absorbed this revelation. How could he have formed such a strong connection with someone who had passed away before he was even born? What did this mean for his blackouts and the time he spent with Evelyn in his alternate reality? He continued to search, discovering that Evelyn had been involved in a tragic accident, losing her life while trying to save a stranger from harm. Her selflessness and bravery had left a lasting impression on the community, and her memory lived on through the stories and anecdotes shared by those who had known her. As Adam pieced together the fragments of Evelyn's life, he began to understand why his subconscious had chosen her as his guardian and confidant during his blackouts. She represented the best of humanity: compassion, empathy, and the ability to find solace in even the darkest of times. This newfound knowledge brought him comfort and also a sense of loss. He knew that the time he spent with Evelyn was only a fleeting illusion, a temporary escape from the challenges he faced in the real world. He needed to find the strength within himself to confront his demons and forge a better path forward. But as he continued to unravel the mystery of his blackouts, he couldn't help but wonder if their connection was more than just a fragment of his imagination. Perhaps, in some way, Evelyn's spirit had found its way to him, guiding him through the darkness and into the light. Empowered by the knowledge of Evelyn's real-life counterpart and the impact she had on the community, Adam decided to heed his therapist's advice and confront the stressors in his life head-on. He tackled his work projects with renewed vigor, pushing himself to meet deadlines without succumbing to the pressure that had once overwhelmed him. He made an effort to reconnect with his friends and family, sharing his struggles with them and finding solace in their support. Gradually, he began to rebuild the relationships that had been strained by his blackouts and emotional turmoil. However, the blackouts did not cease entirely. Despite his newfound determination, Adam found himself transported to the coffee shop on occasion, often when the weight of the world threatened to crush him. Each time, Evelyn was there, her calming presence a beacon of light amidst the storm. As Adam continued to face his demons, he noticed a shift in the dynamics of his blackouts. They became less frequent, and when they did occur, they seemed to hold a deeper purpose. It was as if Evelyn was guiding him, helping him to navigate his past traumas and confront the fears that had haunted him for so long. During one particularly emotional blackout, Evelyn shared a story from her own life, recounting her struggles with loss and grief. Adam listened, captivated, as she spoke of the resilience and strength that had allowed her to rise above the pain and find purpose in her life. "I learned to let go of the things that were holding me back," she told him, her eyes shining with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I chose to embrace the future and all its uncertainties, instead of clinging to the past." Inspired by Evelyn's wisdom, he knew the only way to truly break free from the cycle of the blackouts was to confront the source of his emotional turmoil and find a way to heal. With each step forward, Adam felt himself growing stronger, more capable of handling the challenges that life presented. He knew that his connection to Evelyn and the coffee shop would always be a part of him, but he no longer relied on them as his sole source of comfort. As he walked the path towards healing and self-discovery, Adam couldn't help but feel grateful for the mysterious force that had brought Evelyn into his life. Her presence had been a guiding light in his darkest moments, showing him that even in the face of adversity, there was always hope. Just as Adam was beginning to rebuild his life and find balance, the world around him was thrust into chaos. Tensions between nations escalated, culminating in a full-scale global conflict. News of war spread like wildfire, filling every television screen and newspaper headline with a grim image of destruction and despair. As the conflict intensified, the government instituted a draft calling upon young men and women across the country to serve their nation in the fight against tyranny. Adam found himself among those selected, receiving a draft notice that sent a shiver of dread down his spine. Despite the fear that gnawed at his heart, Adam knew that he couldn't turn away from his duty. He bid farewell to his friends and family, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he may never see them again. He boarded the plane bound for Europe, leaving behind the life he had struggled so hard to rebuild. Once overseas, Adam was thrust into the heart of the conflict. He experienced firsthand the brutality of war, watching as his comrades fell around him, their lives extinguished in an instant. The weight of his weapon in his hands served as a constant reminder of the life and death decisions he now faced. In the midst of battle, the blackouts returned with vengeance. The overwhelming stress and fear triggered by the horrors of war sent Adam spiraling into his alternate reality. with alarming frequency. Each time, he found himself in the coffee shop, Evelyn's calming presence serving as a brief respite from the bloodshed and chaos. During one particularly intense firefight, as Adam and his comrades charged through a war-torn city, the familiar sensation of his vision blurring took hold. He braced himself for the transition, praying that his comrades would survive without him. This time, however, his stay in the coffee shop was different. Instead of the usual comforting atmosphere, the air was thick with tension, and the patrons seemed anxious and unsettled. Even Evelyn appeared troubled, her usual warm smile replaced by a look of deep concern. As Adam sat at his corner table, sipping his cappuccino, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The soothing ambience of the coffee shop had been shattered, replaced by an unsettling sense of impending doom. As the minutes ticked by, stretching into hours, Adam realized that he had been in the coffee shop longer than ever before. Fear gripped his heart as he wondered if he would ever return to the battlefield, to the reality that was slipping further and further away with each passing moment. As the hours turned to days, Adam's desperation grew. He had never been trapped in the coffee shop for so long, and he couldn't help but fear the worst. What if he had been seriously injured on the battlefield? What if he had been left behind, his comrades believing him dead? Evelyn approached him, her eyes filled with a mix of compassion and sorrow. "Adam," she said softly, her voice barely audible above the quiet murmur of the coffee shop. "I need to tell you something." Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for her to speak, bracing himself for the news he dreaded most. "You're not going back," she said, her words heavy with sadness. "You were gravely injured on the battlefield. You're lying there, bleeding out, and there's nothing anyone can do." His breath caught in his throat, and he struggled to process the devastating revelation. "So, this is it? This is where I stay?" he asked, his voice trembling. Evelyn nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm afraid so. Your time in the real world is coming to an end. But you can choose to make this place your new reality. You can find peace here, Adam." Despite the comfort of the coffee shop and his deep connection to Evelyn, Adam couldn't bring himself to accept his fate without a fight. With a determined glint in his eye, he stood up and strode toward the door, intent on breaking free from the confines of the alternate reality. As he stepped outside, the world around him appeared normal, a replica of the streets he had once walked in the real world. However, no one could see him, and he found himself wandering the familiar streets like a ghost, unseen and unheard. Heartbroken and lost, Adam made his way to his childhood home, peering through the window to catch a glimpse of his mother in the kitchen. The crushing realization that she could not see him, that he was no longer a part of her world, sent him reeling. Overwhelmed by grief, Adam sank to his knees on the sidewalk, tears streaming down his face. As he cried, images of the battlefield flashed before his eyes, a fleeting connection to the life he had left behind. For a moment, he was back on the front lines, his lifeless body lying on the cold, unforgiving ground. With a shuddering breath, he accepted the truth. He was dying. His time in the real world had come to an end, and there was nothing he could do to change that. Embracing the inevitable, Adam returned to the coffee shop, the weight of his fate settling heavily upon his shoulders. As he walked through the door, the gentle notes of a familiar melody filled his ears, providing a small measure of comfort in the face of his new reality. Evelyn was waiting for him, her eyes soft and understanding. She offered him a warm, comforting smile, and he couldn't help but be grateful for her presence in this strange, liminal space between life and death. As he took his seat in the corner, the coffee shop seemed to change around him, the atmosphere shifting to one of acceptance and serenity. The patrons, who had once seemed anxious and unsettled, now exuded a sense of peace, their faces reflecting the same calm and acceptance that had begun to take root in Adam's heart. With each sip of his cappuccino, Adam felt the last vestiges of his connection to the real world slipping away, replaced by a newfound understanding of his place in this alternate reality. He realized that, in some way, he had been given a second chance, an opportunity to find peace and happiness in a world free from the pain and suffering that had plagued him for so long. He looked around the coffee shop, his eyes settling on the familiar faces of the patrons. He wondered if, like him, they had found solace and refuge in this strange, timeless place. Perhaps they, too, had been given a second chance, an opportunity to escape the hardships and heartaches of their lives and find peace within the comforting walls of the coffee shop. As the music swelled around him, Adam knew that he had finally found his place, his own little corner of eternity where he could be at peace. His journey had been fraught with challenges and heartache, but in the end, he had discovered a world where he truly belonged. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Until next time, stay spooked.